Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench, and here we are now with part 4 of the build of this Lancaster B.III Dambuster, and what a lovely kit this is turning out to be. So we've had part 1 with the tools and explaining everything and everything. We've had part 2 with going through sort of the first stages of building and everything. Part 3 with some waffling about resources and stuff and references, and now we need to get on with this build. So we're going to hit a little bit of a brick wall straight away because we need to do some decals. So I'm going to show you how to do those, and then we can bang forward with getting this thing built and painted and everything. So I've done a bit of work off camera. If you remember the end of part 3, I showed you how I filled these 4 holes in the floor, and you can see they're gone. You can just see them in the reflection of the clear coat because they have a different texture. But painted it green, got over with the clear coat again, just because we're going to put some little bit of silver wearing on there. Nothing much, because remember it was a new plane basically. So we've got that done. That's all done. That looks much better, and we've still got the holes there. What I would suggest, if you really want to do this on your, another way of doing it on your model, is what they tell you to do is drill out those 4 holes. There's holes in the floor that are sort of like these. They're like blind holes, and they tell you to drill them through. What you could do is just make a little mark at the bottom. When you turn it over, you'll see a white spot, and then you can drill through the white spot and then plug this side with a bit of filler. But it's up to you. There's lots of different ways to do it, or you could just leave the holes there. I think they're going to be visible once the model's done. That's the trouble. So that's done. The other thing I've done is painted this panel here black. This is the engineer's panel, and as you can see, it's black, and I've put a clear coat on it. It's got a bit of brush painted finish on it because I used paint that was probably a little Dutch touch too thick. But I'm not worried about that. A little bit of texture helps sometimes. I've also gone around and just touched in a couple of details with a drop of silver paint. As you can see there, it's just to add a little bit of interest. We're going to do some more work with that in a minute with something called dry brushing. So the reason I've painted that panel black, in the instructions, they don't actually tell you to paint that black. They tell you just to fit this decal here, number 2, onto that panel, and that they tell you to paint all this green, and as you can see there's no instruction to paint that black. The trouble is, decal number 2, you can see here, is clear. So if you just put it on, you have a green panel with the lettering on it. Same with the instrument panel, that needs to be painted black. And this one here is the radios. So really that needs to be painted black as well. On the back of there, where is it? The back of here, that really needs to be painted black as well. So I may well do that actually, because it's going to look daft just putting that on there. So Airfix have dropped one there, I'm afraid. They should have told us to paint these areas black, or made the decals with a black background. But anyway, we can carry on with those 2, and we can fit that circle on the seat. So when it comes to decals, a couple of things I'll tell you straight away. You may be tempted to come along on a cutting mat and cut your decals out with a knife. I wouldn't recommend it. I've said this before. What happens is when you cut with a knife, it ploughs up the 2 edges, much like a plough going through a field. It pulls up 2 edges, and it can make the decals hard to get off the paper, and in worst case scenario with some really thin ones, like the border models ones, it will make them curl up. So be very, very careful. So always cut your decals out with scissors, okay, and that way you get a nice flat edge. So we've got this one here, which is number 1. It's quite obvious what all of these are, so I'm going to cut these first 2 out. I don't think I'm going to use the maps. I don't like the look of them. We may use them, we'll see in a minute. And then this one here I'm going to leave on because we haven't painted that panel black yet. I'll do that off camera, and then I'll fit that one because you don't need to see me paint that panel black. So that's that done. We won't put the maps on yet because we've got that painting to do. So we've got those there. The other thing you must do, you can see on here, each decal has a number by it, okay? You can see on there's a number on the sheet. Cut that off as well, because they're not actually decals. They won't stick to your model. What they will do is come off in the water and float around, and they generally break up into little bits. But it's easy to to notice here the difference between 1 and 2. Just cut them off and just get rid of them. If you've got decals where you've got like a load of stencils or something, or something like come here, something like here, like these all look very similar, but that one's 14, that one's 17, that one's 15, that one's 18. You know, cut them all out, leave the numbers there, and then take one number, cut one number away, like take the 14 away, and then you know you've got 15, 17 and 18, so that one must be 14. And then when that one's down, you know 14's gone, get away 17. Don't cut them all off together, because then you won't know which is which. Alright, so all we need to do, because these are small, we only need a small drop of water. So we're going to put a small drop of water in that upturned Tamiya jar. I'm going to grab a pair of tweezers, and I'm just going to dip that paper in that water, and then I'm going to put it on this cutting mat, and I'm going to put these two decals here out of the way so they don't get water splashed on them. And we're just going to leave that on there to set. Now these are probably going to take a while because they're old. They're at least 10 years old, probably more. Now here we've got our instrument panel. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it out of this clamp because it's just going to break out of the clamp every time I try and do it. So we've got this here, and we can see that the face of this is not flat. You can see it's got this raised area for the flying panel, and we've got the compass down there and everything. So it's not flat. So I'm going to use what's called decal setting solutions. And here we have micro set and micro sol. There are lots of different setting solutions you can buy, but in my opinion, these two are the best off-the-shelf go-to. You can also get the UMP ones, which apparently are very good. I've never tried them, but apparently they work very, very well. They're probably pretty much the same thing. So what I'm going to do is use this micro set, and I've got a little holder for it here from Premium Hobbies. So I'm going to get my micro set, and I'm going to get a drop out from the bottle on a brush, and I'm just going to brush that on there and put a few drops on here. You can see that what's happening, because it's a glossy surface, it's all just bubbling up. But as long as it's there, you can see it's on there. As long as there's some on there, that's absolutely fine. That's all we need. So I'm going to pick up this paper with my tweezers. I'm going to see if this decal's ready to go, and it's not. So I'm going to give it another soak. I can see these things being tough because they're old. And I would seriously recommend, if you've got an old kit like this, I'd seriously recommend using setting solutions, because the micro set helps the glue and helps it stick better, helps it stick down better, and the micro sol softens it and allows it to conform. So I would thoroughly recommend getting this for your decals, especially on older kits. But always do a test first, because some like border model decals, I find I can't get on with them with micro set. It doesn't seem to like them. So what I'm going to do here, this engineer's panel, I'm going to put this in the water now so that it's got a good time to soak, and we'll do the same as well with the yellow dot that goes on the armoured headrest. Now I've got a feeling there should be one on the back as well, but we're not going to worry about that. So I'm not sure if this one's ready to go yet. It looks like it might be starting to move. It's looking like it's playing tough, so I'm going to put some water on the front face as well. I'm going to put a drop on them, let them do their thing, so they can sit there and absorb that water. But as you can see, if you've watched my other Airfix builds, you will know that these are playing hard to get. Okay, so that is floating nicely now. So what I'm going to do now, I really should bring the camera in, shouldn't I? What I'm going to do now is get my brush, and I'm going to put this on here, and I'm just going to pull it off the paper. If I could make that instrument panel stay still, which it won't. And I just want that to stay on the instrument panel. I can pull the paper away. There we go. So now we've got that decal on there. Okay, and I can move that around and get it to sit on here. And bear in mind, it's got that micro sol underneath it, so that's going to help. Micro set, sorry. That's going to help it stick down. Now it doesn't need to be perfect, but at the bottom here you can see we've got a cutout. Okay, we've got a cutout there. That's going to go around those throttle quadrants there. We've got a cutout here to go around the compass, so that's going to go around that side. So as long as it's roughly in position, it's so small and it's so hidden by the windscreen and everything, it's not mega important, but it's a good idea to get it as nice as you can. Now you can get aftermarket sets, you get aftermarket instrument panels and everything, but in this scale I would suggest it's probably not worth it. particularly if you're a newbie. You know, don't get onto building a kit nicely first before you start thinking about adding extras. And because what you want to do is get yourself to the state where you can build a nice presentable model that you're happy with, and then go that step further. It's like going and taking a driving test, and after your second lesson buying a Ferrari. You know, get good with driving your little Ford first, and once you're good at driving a Ford, then go and get your Ferrari, or work up to a Nissan sports car or something, and then, you know, work on from that. Now you can see me here with a cotton bud. I'm starting to roll out the moisture, and that's just to get rid of the excess water underneath. But you can see, because it's uneven, I can't really roll it, and because it's all so small and tightly packed in everywhere, I can't really get on there and roll it properly. So all I'm going to do is get some more microset on the brush, brush it over the top. Now a lot of people say, why are you doing that? If you actually look at the instructions on microset, it tells you, and not a lot of people know this, it tells you to put more microset on the top. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, and there we are. I'm just going to leave that to dry, and what will happen, that microset will pull that down. Okay, so that won't take long to dry. Once it's dry, then we can get on there and start playing with it. Okay, so I'm going to put some microset on here as well. Let it puddle in that hole there. Okay, so we got some on there, you can see. It's just sat on there. And then we can pick this one up, make sure it's the right way up. That one's ready to go. So we can just place it over there and then just pull the paper away. And there's our decal sat there. We can just pull it around using tweezers or whatever. And then we can just grab a cotton bud and roll it over there. And you can see it's so much easier on this one because it's pretty much a flat surface. And then we can use tweezers or some other tool just to shove it around and get it to go. Okay, just like that. Now I'm looking here, and this decal sheet, this plastic molded part, has got a couple of recesses on the left hand side, and they should line up perfectly with those two hand wheels on there. And I don't think they do at the moment, so I'm going to do is go off camera, go to a magnifier and have a look through the magnifier, and then I'll come straight back. And we're back. So I've put that one on there because that was just obviously just plonking it on there. Nothing special about that one at all. As I said, I think it should have one on the back as well, but never mind. We could mask it and paint it. We could just put a dot of yellow paint on there, whatever. You can do whatever you want to do. So this one here, it's gone down. I'm not sure that it's in the right position, but I'm sure it'll look okay anyway. So as you can see, because of the micro set, it's starting to conform, and you can see the same with the instrument panel. The decal is starting to conform to the shape of the instrument panel. Alright, so what I can do now is, with my cotton bud, always use a clean cotton bud. Don't pick anything up, because if you've used another cotton bud and it's got solvent thinners or whatever, and it'll just destroy your decal. So I'm just going to gently prod at that just to make sure it's gone down. Get rid of the excess micro set, and then we can get our micro sole, and I'm using my red brush for the micro sole, blue brush for the micro set. Okay, and then I'm just going to put a drop of that on there, and then really, rule of thumb, you may see me do it from time to time, but rule of thumb, once you've put this on, do not touch it. That will actually turn it into a soft, gooey mess. And sometimes if you touch it, you'll just lift it off. It's like trying to lift wet paint. Okay, so we can just roll that down a bit, and then with the micro sole, just brush that over the top gently. Just leave it. Just leave it to do its thing. And what will happen? Hopefully it will happen, so I can show you. I'm not sure if it's going to happen. I'm going to turn the camera off and come back in a minute to see if it will do it. But what might happen is the decal will just all wrinkle up and it looks terrible. And that's what you want to happen. Leave it, don't touch it. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera now, probably get this panel painted black, and then I can get the other decal on and we can go from there. Alright, so what I've done, I've masked this off. That that decal is 5mm wide and 9mm tall. So I've masked it off, and I'm going to give this a go. I've never tried this before. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, then that's fine. I'm going to put a piece of masking tape across the table as well, so I don't get the pen on there. But I've got here a Sharpie. This piece is so fragile, you can't touch it anywhere, it just wants to snap. So I've got a Sharpie, and what I'm going to do is colour in the area behind the decal with the Sharpie and see if the water from the decal attacks the Sharpie. So we'll just go like that. I think we're going to struggle to get into the bottom corner, to be honest. You can just put that on like that, up to the edge. And then if I grab another marker, typical with the cameras on, you can't find what you're looking for. I should be able to get into that corner. There we go. So if you leave that to dry for 5 minutes, I'm thinking that might be good enough. And it's something I'm prepared to try in this area because it's such a inconspicuous area. I mean, you're only ever going to see this through that side window, which is probably going to not give you a very good view anyway. But there you can see we've got that panel in black. So we'll see if it works. So we'll give that 10 minutes, and then we'll see what it's like when we put the decal on it. This one here, as you can see, it hasn't wrinkled up, but you can see it's starting to conform very much to the shape on that panel. So as I told you, you mustn't touch it after you've put microsol down, but I'm going to, just to try and help it on its way. And it feels like it's pretty tough, so I'm just going to push down. I'm not going to go rubbing it or anything because then it might fall apart, but just push it down just to help it on its way. And then I'm going to put some more microsol over the top and let it do its thing. Okay, so there we are. Okay, so live on camera, so if this cocks up you can see it as well. So I'm going to put some micro set on here. Okay, so we got that on there. We might end up with black ink going over and I'll have to paint all the green again. But what I'm going to do, rather than slide this on, I'm going to take this decal off with tweezers, which is very dodgy. Don't try this at home, kids. And then place it on. And then just see if I can move it into position. Now I'm slightly out on the height by the look of it. Oh, maybe not. Just bring it across a little bit. We'll get it into position. Well, look at that. So we've learnt something there for the future. Mind you, I bet if I tried it on a £600 30-second scale Lancaster, ink would go everywhere. That's just sod's law, isn't it? So there we are. Right. There we are. So we've got the microsol on there, microset, and then we'll put some microsol. I should put more microset on the top, but I just want to get some sol down there. Well, there we go. It works a treat. So we've learnt something together, guys. There we are. And I am going to put that map down because this is an out-of-the-box build with a few extras, so that'll sort of add a little bit of interest, won't it? So we'll get some microset down. And remember, this microset, what it's doing is it's helping the decal settle and it's helping the glue. So we're going to slide that onto there, just like so. And obviously it doesn't need to be perfectly positioned because let's just soak up some of that excess water. Because it's just a map, it could be anywhere on the table. Let's push it towards the end of it. There we go, have it like that. Yeah? How's that? Not quite square, not quite perfect, but plenty good enough. So there we go. Let's just squeeze the end of that cotton bud. There we are, job done. So that's on there. I want an angle purpose, I don't want it all nice and square and even and everything. And then we can put some microsole on top of there. There we are. And just leave those to sit and dry out. Now it's been about 10 minutes, so let's have a look at our instrument panel. And as you can see, that's really starting to pull down on there now. You can see down that edge, it's starting to really pull down. So I'm going to get some more microsole just to wet the surface in case it's sticky. And I'm going to get my cotton bud, I'm going to squeeze my cotton bud onto there to try and make sure every edge pulls down, just like so. And we can see that's gone down lovely. Now what's happened here, which is what always happens with these decals, so be very wary, even if you're doing a very expensive kit, because the, see that moved then, because the face is not flat, if you take a flat strip and you lay it over an undulating surface, what happens, it goes along, down and then up, and obviously as you're doing that it's coming in, it's becoming shorter, and because they've made the decal fit the instrument panel perfectly, because it's got to come along and go up and over and then down and along, it's too narrow. So what we've got to do is try and stretch it out. Now that is easier said than done and not recommended for the beginner, so don't try this at home, folks. But I'm just going to see if I can do it just to make it go, just to show you that it can be done. What will often happen here is the decal will just fall apart, but I'm not too worried about that, because I know I can save it if that happens. Just want to move it up a touch. There we are. So you can see that you can play with it, but you know, you can see I'm very gently tapping it with the brush and just trying to manipulate it rather than just move it. I'm just trying to just dribble it across, like you sort of just touch a marble and touch it rather than roll it across the table. Just very gentle taps. And you can see we've lost some of the shape, but there we go. It's kind of getting there. So it's on quite an angle as well there. The whole thing needs to go over, but the whole thing is so soft it doesn't want to play ball. So let me have a play with this off camera and then we'll see how it looks. I wouldn't recommend you messing with it on your model. Just leave it wherever it falls and just it is what it is. Okay, so some of you may have noticed when I was doing this here that leg there was kind of sticking out, so I've shortened that pair at the bottom and glued it back in. So hopefully that's going to work a bit better. It looks a bit better, doesn't it? But I'm not sure if that leg's supposed to go under the table. It certainly doesn't fit if it does. So there we go. Right, so actually let's have a look at the instructions. Does it go under the table? Is it clear on here? No, you see what it's showing you is it's going into that one goes into the top recess and that one goes into the bottom recess, but we can see on here, if you can see it close enough, it's miles away from that bottom recess. And that one's in the hole, so that's just a bad design and a bad fit. So the next step in here is totally optional. What I'm going to do now is let these decals dry. I'm going to leave them for a few hours to dry out. And then I'm going to give them a clear coat again. And the only reason I'm going to do that is because I'm going to use oils or washes or whatever to make the detail pop. And the reason is I don't want to leave them is because, I don't know if you can see this on here, but if you look at that yellow dot, if you concentrate on that yellow dot, you can see it's got an edge. Obviously the decal has an edge. And what will happen is if I put a wash on, the wash will pick up on that edge. So I'm going to put a clear coat over it, because at the moment you've got this, imagine the decal like a piece of paper, like this instruction book. It's there and it's got an edge, and the wash is going to pick up on that edge. Well, if I put a clear coat on it, it'll be like laying a piece of cling film over this, like laying a plastic sheet over it, and the edge won't pick up the wash then. So it applies to whenever you've used decals. Sometimes you get away with it, but it's not worth the risk, because once it gets under the edge, that's it. There's no going back. So it's worth, it's good practice to do it. But we've got our maps on there, we've got our radio gear there, we've got our instrument panel there, and we've got our yellow dot on there, and our engineer's panel there. So all in all, you can see that, although they're not particularly nice decals and nothing special, they do actually, when you look at it like this, you can see that it's making everything, it's kind of bringing it all to life a bit. And what we're going to do next is use washes and whatever to sort of make all this detail bing, really pop, and then we'll do some dry brushing as well. So see you back in a second. Pressing on. So what we're going to do now, we're going to add what's called an oil wash, and what this is going to do is just basically fill in all the recesses and just make everything pop. Now you need to be careful, you need to be careful, because as you can see here, we have an ejector pin mark there. Okay, now ejector pin marks are the evil of all scale modelling. And if I let the oil go in there, it'll make that ejector pin mark look big. So what we need to do is make sure we don't actually emphasize on that area there. We could have done is repaired it and everything, but the pilot seat's going to be there and everything. You're probably not really going to see it. So this set here is really worth having. I always used these. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll notice I've used these a lot. They're Modeller's World oil washes, and the Modeller's World do a lot of products. And I used to get mine from Premium Hobbies. Now if you want them, you can get them from Scale Model Shop in the UK. I contacted Scale Model Shop and said, I've heard these products they've gone out of business. And Modeller's World haven't gone out of business, but they are no longer imported into the UK. So I think the distributors decided that the prices they were asking made them far too expensive compared to stuff like MIG ammo, so there was no point in importing them. I'm guessing that's what's happened. So basically you might see me use these from time to time, but for these builds, for newbies, beginners, whatever, I'm going to use products that are currently available. Now this is an air weathering set for early RAF fighters and bombers, and you can see here we've got 3 washes in here, and it's $12.95 for the set. I'm not sure how much it is now, that was probably about a year ago. So we've got panel line wash for RAF light grey undersides. Well, that doesn't apply to this one. Panel line wash for green and brown camouflage. Well, obviously that applies to this one. And then we've got a panel line wash for RAF night bombers black underside. And that again applies to this one. As you can see, we've got a Lancaster on the front. So this is a good little set to get. And not only do we, this is the thing that annoys me with the companies like MIG Ammo, and AK do the same. They're telling you it's a panel line wash for RAF green and brown camouflage. Yes, that's just a suggestion, but some people take it as gospel. You can use dark brown, black, whatever you want. It's all up to you. And modelling is all about the fun of learning new techniques and stuff. It's like I did with this, with using the magic marker for the backing for the decal. Never tried it before, never even thought of it, but as you can see, it works really well. So it's all about trying new things and getting results. So in here, I want to add a wash that's just going to make the details sort of just pop a bit, just sort of, around the edges of these boxes and stuff. I just want it to pop. I'm not trying to change the colour of the inside. I still want it to be green, but I just want to enhance the details. So in here, we've got 3 colours. This is like a, this is called stone grey. So that's like a grey colour. And then this one here is neutral brown. And then this one here is storm grey. So I think we're probably going to go with this one because it's going to be very, very subtle. And with modelling, this sort of thing, subtlety is the name of the game. You don't want to be too garish. If you go in there with a black, it'll end up looking like a bloody crossword puzzle. You don't want to be too garish. So with these washes, always give them a really good shake. Good practice is to actually decant them into a upturned Tamiya jar or something, so you don't get contamination and you don't knock them over. But because I'm going to do it a little bit, I'm just going to use them here. And what I've got is a little fine brush. My recommendation is keep your brushes that you're going to use. I generally use this brush is old, and no longer suitable for doing detail painting. So when the ends sort of get all tatty, cut the ends off and use them for washes. So in here, all I'm going to do is, as you can see, I can put a drop there, put a drop on each of those 4 places, and as you can see, the wash will run along all the lines. Okay, and as you can see, I'm using a small brush. I'm not just brushing it all over like you do with a flory wash, and the reason for that is so we don't have so much cleanup. So, and this is also another reason for doing the, remember we did the semi-gloss clear coat? That's why, because that will make this run around the corners and then it won't stain the green paint. If we just left it, and I'll show you in a minute, on an untreated area, I'll show you what happens if you don't put the clear coat on. So all you need to do is brush this along the edges. As you can see, I'm not using enough down here, I'm going to put some more on down here. As you can see, what's happening is it's running around and it's highlighting all that detail in there, and it's just making it all pop. So if you just run the brush down there, as you can see, run the brush down there and down there and then down there. Also note we don't have any windows or anything in yet. There's a reason for that. We can brush this over there. Okay, you can brush some over that seat. Make sure we get in behind that seat, and as you can see, it's made everything just a little bit more interesting to look at. So we'll just leave that and let it dry. We'll do the same on the other side. We'll do the same on here. As you can see on here, I can brush it around these boxes, and all it will do is just pick up. It's very, very subtle. Okay, we don't want a big black garish wash over there. We just want subtlety. Same over these rivets in the floor, just to make them pop, make them visible. Just trying to make things a little bit more interesting than they currently are. Alright. Some around there, some around there. We'll plonk some on here as well. As you can see, it just makes it just a little bit darker. Okay, so as I say, I'm going to carry on, and it's looking like I need to give it a shake again. These washes, they settle very, very fast, so it's always good to keep shaking them, and you'll see the difference here straight away when I put this on. You can see how much darker that's become. So I'm just going to brush that down there. Brush some down there, brush some down there, let it go in and do its thing. Alright, and we're going to leave this to dry, and it does take a while. You can speed it up with a hairdryer, but because it's an enamel based or oil based product or whatever, it will take a while to dry. Okay, so bear that in mind. It's not something you can rush. Alright, so I think we'll put some around the seat as well. See what it does to that leather look. Put some around the seat base. Some over the top there. And there we are. Oh, I also put a yellow dot of paint on the back of the seat there before I clear coated it, so I have got that yellow dot on the back. It's not perfect, but it's just having a presence of yellow there. So there we are. You can see how that's just very subtly brought that detail to life. Right, back in about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, whatever. See you then. Alright, so what I've done, as it was dry and it was getting lighter, I didn't really like the look of it, so I've gone over it again, and I've used this is just to show you that when they say about these colours, it's recommendations. This is called Stone Grey for Black. I'm going to try and keep all my washes to this pack for this build, so that you can sort of just get this pack and get the same results. And also what I've done, I've brushed some on here, as you can see, where it's not clear coated, and I've brushed some on here where it is clear coated, so I can show you the difference. But basically we can see that it's a lot better, the effect it's a little bit more pronounced. We're going to go over afterwards and wipe some of it off anyway. But you can see on here around those boxes it's better, and also on those rivets. So that's what I've done. Now the tip I'm going to show you now is something you can apply to all models. It's not something you have to do, but it's something, it's good to do it. Okay, it's great for the end results. What I would normally do is spray this from the outside. I would spray this black from all the different angles to make sure I get all the edges of the windows where the clear parts are going to go, to make sure I get them all black. Otherwise, what you can get is, if you look at this, if you think of this as just this hole here, okay, what you can get is the clear part goes in, and the clear part is obviously like a T shape, and it's going to sit in that hole so it's flush on the outside. But around the outside of that we've got grey plastic, and we don't want to see the grey plastic because we're going to mask that window, and then we're going to spray, and what we might end up with is seeing the camouflage, or the black in this case, and then you'll see grey plastic around the edge of the window. So what I'm going to do is get my brush, and I've actually used a upturned Tamiya pot rather than a wet palette because I don't want the paint to be thinned at all. All I'm going to do is with my brush is just run around the edge like this. Now you may be tempted to use magic marker, but I would avoid that, because what will happen with magic marker is the ink will be absorbed into the paint, and you may end up with like a big black shadow around your windows. It can look quite effective if you want that, but maybe not. So all I'm doing is just going around here with the brush. What I'm doing is holding the brush perpendicular to the surface and just going around. I'm not trying to paint the edge, I'm just running around the edge. Okay, I've missed a bit there, look. Alright, you can see the paint is capillary along those panel lines. That's absolutely fine, that's not going to be an issue, because this is all going to be painted black anyway down here. Okay, so just go around, and that way we won't see any grey plastic. Obviously if your model's black already you don't need to do this, or a very dark grey, but this light grey Airfix plastic, I thoroughly recommend it. I'm also going to show you a little trick that we do with the clear parts that I do with all my models, and it really makes it look a lot more real. Now we need to be very careful with this window down here, because I'm tempted actually to paint that one green instead, because we've got that framework in there, and that's something, as I was showing you in the research material, it's very prominent that that's green, so I'm going to paint that one green. But these here, we've done them black, we've gone around, and they're all looking good. So there we go. Okay, when we look on the inside, if we get any black splurges anywhere, we can just mop it over the cotton bud. But as you can see, when you look, just look at it from all the angles and make sure you've got black paint everywhere. I think Jess is about to start barking. And as you can see, when you look at that on an angle, you look at that on an angle, you can see the difference. You've got this black frame around the windows rather than the grey plastic, and you can't really see the grey plastic, but boy oh boy, you'll see it when there's when the rest of the fuselage is painted black. So just running around, and that's it. Okay, there we go, that's the black all done. You'll notice I'm not removing the excess black paint with a cotton bud Q-tip, because all you do is wipe all the paint off all the edges, so that's pointless. So what we'll do is come in with a, I don't know, this is a 1000 grit hard sanding stick. You don't want to use a sponge for this. And just basically just remove any excess paint that's there, and obviously do this before the clear parts go in, because you don't want to be sanding over your clear parts. So that's good enough. Doesn't matter if you've got some black paint showing, as long as you've removed. Let's use something a bit coarser. This is a 800 grit. All of these sticks are quite worn out actually, to be honest, so they're probably a little bit less. So the 800 is probably more like 1000 now. But, make sure you use a hard stick, don't use a sponge, because a sponge will just go in and take the paint off the edges or off the corners. So there we go. just like so. There we are, job done. So that's that all removed. So now we've got all these oils in here and they're all dry. So what I can do is grab a cotton bud and I'm going to show you what we do. Okay, so in here you can see I've got an excess. I've done this on purpose. That's all brushed all over the surface. And even though it's dry, I can use a cotton bud and you can see that because we've got a glossy surface, I can actually remove all of the excess. I could go over the whole lot and it will just leave wash. The panel line wash, it will just leave it in all the corners, just like so. Okay, and it gives us a lovely patina to the whole thing. Alright, so now what we've done is emphasise that detail, and when we look inside it just makes it more interesting to look at. Now if you look back here, as you can see, I cannot remove the wash totally. It's left a tarnished look to it, and as you can see as well, remember what I said about priming? Remember I said about I'm priming because I want to do this. You can see here we're through to the grey plastic because I haven't primed, and that's what it's all about. Okay, so you can see we've got the wash in the corner, which is what we wanted, absolutely fine, but I can't remove it all from the green. It's left a dark stain, and that's what it does. It darkens anything because the paint's matte and it absorbs the wash. But whereas with this one, and if you really want to go to town and really sort of take it out of there, you can get some odorless thinners on your cotton bud and go over it, and it'll really take it out. Okay, so there we are. We'll do the same on this side. Just remove the excess. Job done. Okay. So back in a minute for the next step. Okay, so now we're going to do what's called dry brushing. What we're going to do, we're going to take some paint, and here I've got a super metallic silver. Okay, it's very bright. And we're basically going to dry brush our control panels and everything just to make those pop a little bit, and you'll be amazed at how much they do pop. So we're going to grab this is the Mr. Colour Super Metallic. You can use any silver paint you want. You don't have to use silver, you can use like a dark grey or something if you want to, but I would recommend not using an acrylic. Okay, something like Tamiya XF or anything. They don't tend to dry brush well because they just completely dry out on the brush, and then you're forever rubbing, and you end up rubbing through, or you end up it just comes off as powder and then it just comes away. So it's good to use a nice wet sort of lacquer paint, as it were. So you can see I've got some on there now, and I've got a very wide brush, and I'm brushing all this off, and as you can see, as I move across the paper towel, I'm getting less and less and less, but we really do want next to nothing on the brush. And I'm even going to fold the paper towel over it and squeeze the brush, and as you can see, we get quite a bit coming off. So we really want to get most of this paint off, and that's why I've got a nice big fluffy brush for this reason, is that I can go very lightly. Now I need to test this before I go anywhere near the model, and the best way to test it, on your sprue, whatever model you've got, you'll have some raised lettering on here, so we can test it on there and we can see excuse me, that you can see just that tiny little bit on there. You can see what it's doing. It's making that lettering really pop out. So I'm just going to test it on the back of the fuselage back here on the edges of these windows. Well, not the edge of the windows, but the edges of the square holes. You can try it under there. We're just going to test it on areas where it's not conspicuous. And then what we can do is just very gently rub over, and I'm literally just letting the brush fall over. And if you start pushing, you get you won't get this effect. But if you look at that now, that panel there, you can see it has a very subtle look to it. Now if you look at this panel here, you can see it's black, silver and grey. But if I just gently rub over it, very gently, You can see it kind of comes to life. Same down here. And then the same over here. We're going to pick up on this panel here. You can see this panel here has raised detail. That's all fuses and everything on there. We can just run over that. And as you can see, it's not bang, it's not like a great silver block. But you can see that it's just picking up on the edges and giving it a slightly metallic look. We can do the edge of the engineer's panel as well. Now obviously stay away from the seat, because the edge of the seat will not be aluminium. And then what you can do is just go over the whole fuselage inside and just pick up on the top edges. Remember, you've got the green paint, and we've got in the corners we've got the grey, and now on the top edge we're just going to add some of this silver, and it just, as you can see here, I'll show you now on the camera, it just gives it this kind of three-dimensional look. So we've turned it from a piece of grey plastic into I was going to say a masterpiece. It's not a masterpiece. It's become a cockpit rather than just a piece of plastic. We'll do the same on the back of the seat here. We'll just see if we can just pick up on the corners, and it just sort of fools the mind to think it's metal because it has a shiny edge. Same around the base of the seat here, staying away from the leather. And it's so subtle you can hardly see it, but that's what you want. You don't want to be able to see. I mean, this black box here, the G box, this is going to look great. We just go around and it will just give it that metallic look. And on here, there we go. We could also do the same on the navigator's seat, because that's aluminium as well. And on that pillar, edge of the table is obviously wood, so we don't want to be doing that one. That's all come loose again. I can't believe how many times I've glued that. There we go. So that's that. Rudder pedals, just give those a quick brushing over with this, and we can do that column as well for the instrument panel. We can even go around the edges of the instrument panel itself. As you can see, it's a very, very subtle look, extremely subtle. And obviously if you do this before the oils are dried, then you'll just drag all the oil out. There we go. We can also see if we can impart some aluminium look onto the floor. I very much doubt it because it has that gloss on it, but I don't really want to chip the floor up crazily like I've done on my 32nd scale one, because obviously this was a new aircraft. There we go. Okay, so it's over the top, it's not realistic, but when you see it all assembled, it will all become realistic, and you will see what I mean when we get this together. Right, it's time to start looking at getting these windows in now, I think. Alright, so now it's time to give it a flat coat before we put the windows in, then we'll get the windows in. So basically I want to go over everything and give it a coat of matte varnish. So I'm using here LP23. This is called flat clear. You can use, there are lots and lots of clears on the market. You can get MRP, Mr. Hobby, you can use Tamiya XF86, is it, or XF85, I can't remember now. There's all sorts of different ones you can get. You get brushable ones and all sorts. I'm using the LP because it's a good tough, you know, a good tough clear to have. So I'm just going to basically very lightly airbrush this on. The thing is with flats, you need to go very lightly applying them, and I just basically want to take away all the sheen that's on there, because nothing would have been sort of shining like it is on here. We don't need to be plastering it on and trying to change the world. We just literally want to just take away the sheen so that it's not all shiny in there. Okay, literally just a dust coat, and as you can see, it takes away the sheen. It'll be easier for me to show you on a large piece like this. You can see on here. Okay, so if I hold that in the light, okay, and then I spray it, you can see the sheen disappearing before your very eyes. Okay, and as I say, you know, guys, if you're going to get into the hobby, if you're going to build more than one model a year, you know, with the price of airbrushes these days, get yourself an airbrush. I'll do a tutorial very soon, a beginner's airbrush guide. But I tend not to do them because the reason is there are so many experts out there that will tell me I'm doing everything wrong. And then somebody else will do one completely different, and a load of other experts will tell them they're doing everything wrong. And this is the trouble with airbrushing. It's one of those subjects that there are lots of people that are very opinionated about, and if you don't do it their way, you are wrong. And I tend not to listen to any of them. This airbrush here, parts of this airbrush, like the nozzle and the needle, are over 10 years old. So, as you can see, just lightly spraying it on, just a very light coat, just to take out any shine, because we don't want to see shininess when we look in our Lancaster cockpit. There we go. As you can see, the shininess is all gone and we're good to go. I don't think I did the back of that seat, did I? And the beauty of the Tamiya LP is it's not absolutely 100% dead flat. It has a very slight sheen to it. If you want to go absolutely dead flat, this product here is probably the flattest varnish I know of. I'm not sponsored by AK, they've never given me anything, but this stuff, if you want to go flat, that is the flattest surface I've ever seen. It really is very good. The trouble is it's not very hard wearing, so it'll be fine in this cockpit. You know, once it's all assembled and everything, it'll be absolutely fine. But if it's something you're going to be handling, like a tank or something like that, I wouldn't use it, because it does tend to sort of just come off. It tends to roll off. So you can see now that floor is lovely and matte. And now I can show you something else. I'm going to grab that brush that I used earlier with the silver paint, and now that we've got a matte finish on there, we should be able to depart, there you go, a slightly metallic worn finish onto that floor, because now it's matte, it's picking up the paint off the brush, as you can see. Okay, so that's all we want, is a little bit of a worn finish, just to make it like there's people walking up and down there, but it won't be all chipped and worn away. And I don't know how well you can see that, but from here it looks pretty good. All right, so there we are. So we can just go over that again, just to seal it in. I'm all for sealing things in so that one lot of paint, one job is protected from the next, if you like. As you can see, spraying it very lightly so that we don't get this build up, because then you won't get it matte. It won't go matte at all. And as you can see, the seat is done. So that leather would have been a bit shiny. The same with the pilot seat here. That green, we've lost the shine. We're going to bring that back. So with this is one of the things that people say, you can't do that. I'm going to pour that back in there. There we go. It's already thinned, and that's gone back in the air in the bottle. Then we can even come along and spray the excess back into the jar, just like so. There you go. You heard that. So we've wasted nothing. And there'll be people now throwing their computers across the room. They'll be having a big row with the missus. They'll be going absolutely crazy. You can't do that. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Well, I'll tell you what, I just did. And I've done it hundreds of times before as well. Okay, so remember I said we're going to bring back the gloss. What I'm going to do with this seat, okay, I've got this is X22 clear, so this is an acrylic paint. I've got an absolutely... Okay, sorry about that, guys. The bloody battery went on the camera, I didn't realise, and I've just looked back and you won't see me do any of this. But basically what I've done is just put a few drops of clear, you can see in those gauges there, just to get a bit of reflection. I've done it on the engineer's panel there. So when you look in, you'll just kind of, if you catch the light, you'll see the gauges are glossy. And I've just put a few drops on the dashboard, on the instrument panel. As you can see, it just makes it a little bit of variation, that's all. And also a drop on the front of the G unit there, just in case you catch it in the light. You'll see the glass on the front, as it were. So there we go. Now, if you want to, you could go on and start getting extras like seat belts and stuff. Oh, the other thing, I painted the leather on the seat, so it has a slight sheen to it now. But we'll forget the seat for now, because we're not putting it in until after all the fuselage is together. So, yeah, if you want to, you can go on and get seat belts. You could make your own seat belts with some strips of tape or strips of foil or whatever. I would probably do that with this one. The problem is with this model, if you buy a set of seat belts for it, you're getting all the seat belts for the turrets and everything, and the navigator and the wireless operator, but you're not going to see any of it. So it's kind of, you know, really, what's the point? So really all you want is just a harness for the pilot's seat. Now, somebody did give me a part used aftermarket big Ed set for this, and unfortunately the pilot's seat harness has been used, and I could get it off the other seat, but I don't really want to start going into aftermarket with this, because it's a beginner's sort of newbies build, and you, like I just said, you don't want to go spending £10 or £12 or whatever on a set of seat belts when you're only going to use one of them. So, you know, probably just leave them off, maybe just put a couple of bits of tape on there. I mean, I'm not sure how good the clear parts are anyway, and how well we're going to see in there. I mean, if you put this seat up against there, you can see the vision through the clear isn't that good. I mean, this is quite an old kit now, so, you know, the glazing's quite thick. But we shall see. Maybe we'll just put a couple of bits of tape on there just to represent something. So I'm now looking at fitting these windows into the sides of the fuselage. My biggest concern are these little ones at the front here. This one is H12. And you can see that one's going in there. So H12 is this one here. And it kind of looks like they go in from the inside. It looks like they could go in from the outside, but I'm not too sure. So I'm not going to worry about them right away. I'm going to do one. I'm going to do one off camera and then come back and tell you what I think is best to do. So, looking at these main windows, if we start at the back here, okay, so in fact we'll put this fuselage half to one side, because in the instructions in step 11 we are working on this side. So we'll start at the back here. We've got this. In fact, we'll start here with the shorter one. Here we have H9, so we're going to get H9 off the sprue. Now, number 9 is here. Now, we have to be quite careful when we cut clear parts. I'm just going to see what they're like. Yeah, they feel, yes, they are quite brittle. So use your nippers and cut quite a long way away from the clear part, because sometimes what happens, you cut it and you get a shockwave go through and it leaves a big white sort of splinter in there. So just cut it off, and then when you cut this off, there's no, see what's happening when you cut it off the sprue, you're trying to spread it apart like that, but when you actually cut the little nib off afterwards, you're just cutting the nib off. So it's, you know, It's a bit like the Dambuster bouncing bomb. If you drop that bomb in mid-air, nothing happens. But if you drop it in the water, it's got all the water behind it to work. So, you know, and that's why you get the reaction. And I'm going to take my knife and just trim off those sprue nibs. I don't really want to do any sanding on here because I don't want to risk, well, I'll be okay. I don't want you to risk rubbing your sandpaper across the clear part, because you want it nice and shiny. Okay, so we can see on here, if we look on here, we can see that the actual holes, the cutouts, are closer to the bottom than they are to the top. And you can see on here, as I'm holding it now, the raised glazing is closer to the bottom than it is to the top. So what we can do is put that in like that. We can see how it fits. And as you can see, it's not too bad. Now, if you look at this, you will see, I hold it and move it around in the light, you will see that we will get like a glinting chrome effect around the edge. Can you see that? It's probably easier to do it with the part in my hand. When you look at the clear part, when you look around the edge, it's almost as though it has a chrome rim around it. I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, right, I've decided to use my a little permanent marker rather than a Sharpie, because it doesn't have a very sharp point. And what I'm going to do is go around the edge of these parts, and as you can see, what I'm going to do, the glazing is raised. There's hair, I've got a big problem with hairs at the moment. Jess is molting, I think. So, there we go. Go away, hair. Go away. Okay, don't worry about getting on the glazing, it doesn't matter. And then we can come around this other one, and just what we're going to do is just go around the outside edge. And what you will see now, when you look at this window, you can see all that chrome shininess is gone because we've flattened it out. Okay, now as I say, don't worry about the black pen on the windows, we'll get rid of that. So make sure it's the right way up, and then just pop it in like so. Check our fit. We can see that you can feel it's gone in there nicely. Okay, now then, when it comes to gluing clear parts, there are a million different ways and there are a million different opinions, and like I said with airbrushing, there's a lot of people that will tell you what you're doing is wrong. There are also a lot of myths. Now, I like to use extra thin to glue my clear parts, and every time I do, people say, I've heard that extra thin will fog your clear parts. It doesn't. It does if you get it on there, if you get a drop on there and then you just leave it, it will probably be okay, you'll polish it out. If you get it on there and then you start rubbing it with your finger or trying to rub it off, you'll make a right mess. So if you do get any extra thin or any plastic glue on your clear parts, don't touch it, just leave it. Let it dry hard, leave it for a day, 24 hours, let it go hard, and you'll be able to sand it out. If you start touching it, you start trying to pull it around, you'll ruin the surface and you won't get it back. So for that reason, a lot of people like to use microcrystal clear, or they use ultra glue, or any type of white glue. The problem with those is, what I find, especially with something like, I mean, that's fine if you're gluing a canopy on, I tend to still not use it. But here, the problem is if I glue that in with crystal clear, and then when I'm doing the outside, I push that window and it pops in, I've had it. I can't get it back in. There's no way. This is one of the problems with Lancasters of all scales. You can't get that window back in. So basically I'm going to use extra thin and I'm going to put it in the middle. And to make sure I get a good bond, I'm going to remove the paint from this area here. Okay, I'm going to make sure I remove the paint and the primer. I'm not going right over to the glazing. I'm just staying within the confines there. You can see how much I've removed. Alright. And then I can make sure this is the right way up, make sure we got the right way up. Actually, as a matter of interest, will it fit the wrong way round? Let's see. It will go in the wrong way round, but as you can see, the window doesn't fit at all. So make sure you got it the right way up. Okay, so it's closer to the bottom than it is to the top. So there we are, just like that. Okay, so that's in there like that. You can see that fits really well. Now what I'm going to do is grab some extra thin, and here again, this is what I'm on about, but don't touch it. I've got a nice big drop of extra thin on there. Now when I put this on the edge of here, you will be able to see it go under. Watch this. See it going under? And you can see it's pulling the ink off of the windows. That's it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to push down on it. I'm not going to press it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay? Don't touch it. Just leave it alone. And also be careful not to put it down on the bench so that the backside is touching the bench. So just lay that on a knife or something like that, and then move on to something else. Just leave it alone. So what we can do now is pick up the other side, get our instructions, look at the other side, and we can see that this one here is H11. So that one there, the same on this side. So what we'll do, I've got it resting on that knife, so I'm going to change to this knife, have that resting there. So this one, I'm going to scrape out the paint from there, just like so. There we go. And then we're going to get H11 off. H11 was opposite H9, so we get this off, again cutting well away from the part. Okay, the other thing you can do is cut them off with a hot knife. You can saw them off if you have a saw. But be very, very careful with your clear parts. It's always worth taking extra time. And as I say, I'm not sanding these because if you're a newbie, it's not good practice to go getting around your clear parts with sanding sticks and stuff, because one slip, your clear part's ruined. So there we go. So I'll go around the edge of here. Okay. Just in case you don't understand why I'm doing that, when you look at that there, you can see on the left hand side there's no ink. Obviously on the right hand side there is, and you can see on the left hand side we have like a chrome ring around the window, and on this side we don't. So there you go. Right, so we'll do the same on this one. This is a great tip to carry with all your models, especially like your Hunko 111s where you got all that glazing on the nose, or your B17s or whatever. It's good to get rid of those shiny edges. Just check it's the right way up, check the glazing that's good, and yes it does, it's in there, looking nice. And also you can see now why I went around the edge of the holes with the black paint, because now we see no grey plastic or no shiny bits or anything in there. So once again I'm going to put this on my knife. In fact, I'll hold it up so you can see what I'm doing. I can get some extra thin. I've got a nice big drop on here. Make sure my finger's not touching on the back. Just touch that in there, let the drop in there, and just leave it. Okay, the reason I'm leaving it, if it's got onto the window at all, if it's gone across and got onto the glazing, if I touch it, if I push that in, the glue will ooze out and it will make a mess of the window. Alright, if I start pressing on it, it might capillary out and onto my finger, and then I get it on the back of the glazing. The best thing to do is just completely leave it alone. What you can do is after a few minutes, like with this one here, once the glue is gelled slightly, just give it a gentle tap just to make sure it's down. But you can see on there, there's finger marks from me, but you can see that glazing is perfectly clear and untouched. There's no fogging, nothing, and because it's plastic to plastic with no paint in the way, we'll have a perfect joint. Now what we can do afterwards, especially with this one, we can come along afterwards with a brush, paint around and make sure we cover up all this black ink and everything. But we can do that afterwards should we want to. You may not want to because you're probably not going to see any of it anyway. But there we go. So as I say, just leave those 20 minutes. Just let the glue just gel off. I mean, this one here, I can see that this corner may be slightly raised compared to that corner, but I'm not going to touch it yet. I'm going to leave it 10 minutes, let the glue just gel off. And when I say gel off, what I mean is when you put the glue down initially, it's really, really wet in there, and if you push it, it will all ooze out. If you let the glue just, it sort of turns to like a jelly, it's too thick to capillary. okay, and it won't ooze out. In fact, we're probably ready now. Just give that a little push. No, it's not going down at all. It's absolutely fine. So there we are. Okay, happy with how that's come out. Right. Yeah, that's definitely down. You can see again on this side, the clear part is crystal clear. There's no fogging or anything. And what we're going to do, once it's all dry and in there solid, we'll go over with some IPA on a cloth, on a cotton bud, and just, or thinners or something, and we'll just rub that away and all that ink will come off. All right. And we're leaving the black around the edge. We've got the black paint, we've got the black ink. We're going to have that nice defined black line around the window rather than this light grey plastic. So there we go. So I'll carry on and do the rest exactly the same, and I'll come back to you when we're ready to do this front glazing, because that's going to be a different story completely. Alright, so that's all of those windows in now. They've all gone down nicely. That's all good. So we can get all those cleaned up. But we'll leave that to the next part because I realise that I am running over the hour now, so I don't want to bore you to death. But at least we're getting on with things now. Things are moving slowly, but we're doing a lot. You know, we've done decals, we've done clear coats, we've done all sorts. We've done our detail paint and everything. We've got lots of bits and pieces done. So this little front window here, I've done this one, all right, and I wanted to do it off camera so I knew exactly what I was doing. It's very, very tricky, and as a beginner, you are going to struggle with this. If you have at the end of the day, if you mess it up, don't worry about it. I will try and find something I will show you in the next video, and if I forget, please remind me. I will show you how you can actually make this window. You don't need to put this part in. Now, it has no flange around it whatsoever. It's just literally going in. So I'm removing the sprue nib using a knife. I'm not sanding it, okay? And we just need to run the knife over it, and we're just trying to feel if there's a step, because it's absolutely critical that we get rid of all that sprue nib. Now, if you look at this part closely through a magnifier or something, if you look at it end on, obviously the way it goes, it's narrower this way than it is that way. Okay, it's narrower that way than it is that way. So obviously you've got top and bottom, or top and bottom. So it's forward, it's going in that way along the fuselage, yeah? We've also got a little piece of plastic on it there. I want to get rid of that. Right. Now if you look at it end on, so looking like from top to bottom or bottom to top, you will see it's not straight. It's like a parallelogram. And obviously it's going to only go in the fuselage one way. Now in the instructions, let's go back to the correct side, they're telling you to put it in here from the inside. It won't go in from the inside. I can't make it go in from the inside. I think it goes in better from the outside. So here you can see we have the same thing. Because of the way the mold tool works, we have a parallelogram there. So obviously it's going to only go in one way. So we need to look at how this is, and we can see that this side here is cut that way. So that's going to be the back. So I'm just going to offer this up to here and put it into the hole, and you can see that it fits in there beautifully from the outside. Alright, now it needs a little bit of a squeeze, which is no problem. We're going to deal with that in a minute. And I'm just going to have to knock it out. Just push it out with the tweezers. And what I'm going to do is just go around the edge. I've got my pen. I'm just going to go around the edge and get the edges coloured in black. Okay, so we don't get that chrome ring around it. I do this on every single clear part I use now. Again, don't worry about getting it on the face. Try and keep it off the inside face. The outside face doesn't matter at all, but the inside face is going to be more difficult to clean off. So have a look at it again, see which way it's going. I can see it's going that way. So literally I'm going to drop that in there, just push it into place like so. It will only go in one way, and make sure you get the right one. I've tried them. I tried fitting that one in this side and there's no way, so make sure you get them off the sprue one at a time. We've got a bit of plastic down there which I'm not very happy about, because if the glue gets on that, it's going to make a mess. So what I'm doing is looking at it in the light, and I can see that the bottom is in and the top is out. So I'm just going to push that corner in, and I'm going to push the bottom corner out. Alright, now this is not beginner territory. I'm really sorry guys if you're really struggling with this. But what I will do, in a second, I will show you. In fact, yeah, I'm not going to leave to the next video. I will show you in a minute how you can make this window. Because this is going to be a struggle for you. And if you don't have liquid cement, I think you're really going to struggle to get this in. Okay, now I'm struggling with this myself, and I've been building models for 54 years, so I can see what you guys. I'm just going to check I have got it the right way. Yes, I have. I'm looking at it. This side is like that, that side is like that, so it's designed to go in on an angle because of the way this is made. So I'm just going to put this down on the back and then slide it across. Excuse my nail guys, they're disgusting, I bite them. There we go. And if you want to give it a little nudge, you can just get the back of your tweezers or something flat and just give it a little push in. Just like so. Okay, now if it's sticking out a bit, it doesn't matter. We can sand that and get it flush. And then I'm going to get my extra thin. And I'm going to, so you can see what I'm doing, I'm taking most of the glue off the brush. Not all of it, I want it to be a little bit wet. And then what I'm going to do is touch the brush on the plastic and then move across, okay, and then come away. I'm not going to try and go onto the seam because then I'll get glue on the top of the clear part. So what I'm doing, watch this carefully, I'm going to do this very quickly. I'm touching the plastic and then moving across to the clear part and coming away. Okay, I can do the same here, touching the plastic, across to the clear part, moving away. Same there, move away. Alright, and if you do that, so basically what you're doing, if how can I show you this? Where's a piece of plastic? Here's a piece of plastic. Back here doesn't matter, so I can show you what I'm doing. Here's a piece of plastic strip. I can rip it off afterwards. So what I'm doing, if you imagine the white is the clear, I'm not doing this. If I go on to the white, if I go on to there, it's going to make a mark on the clear. So what I'm doing is coming along, I'm touching the grey plastic and then moving across and then come away. And that way I've got no glue on the clear part at all, but you can see that the glue has run around. You can see on there where that mark is, you can see it's run around and capillaried around, and that's it. Now that's been on there for about 30 seconds, a minute. I'm just going to give it a very, very gentle nudge. Okay, now I've pushed the top in. I shouldn't have done that. Just going to push the top out. This one doesn't fit as well as the other side did, I can assure you. But there we go, that's in. We can just leave that alone now. Let that sit. Let that set, and that'll be it. It's like Ron Culvery says when he's done. If you haven't seen him, go and have a look. Ron Culvery, great to watch, very entertaining. Builds model ships, but it's not always about model ships, his channel. He says, you know, leave it alone, leave it alone. He keeps playing with things and nudging things and invariably makes it worse, in his words. So yeah, so he tends to leave things alone. And here I am saying that, and I'm playing with this, but I know that the glue is now gelled, so it's not going to capillary out and run under my finger or anything. But I can get that. I want to get it nice and level, make sure it's nice and flush on the outside, and there we go. This one here, this one's been on here for about 10 minutes, so I can play with this one. I just really want to get it so it's flush. So like I said, I'm going to show you how to make. I need to find something with a hole in it so I can show you how to make a window. Okay, so just quickly guys, with that problem up there, if you mess it up, it's not the end of the world. You can get some white glue, or I'm using here micro crystal clear. I'm going to get a big dollop of glue on this cocktail stick, or you could use a brush, and I'm going to use one of these propeller hubs to show you, and I can just literally go into that hole, and as you can see, I can run this around, and as you can see, we've made a complete film in that hole. I can do 4 there with this one bit of glue on here. There we go, there's 3. And there's 4. And as you can see, this one is much thicker than these. And if you're doing that front, I would get it as thick as you can, because when it dries it does shrink back. And these will end up as being very concave, and this will probably be quite flat. When you look at the back side, you can see this one is bulged again, and these are very flat. So I'll turn the camera off and then I'll quickly come back in about half an hour when they're dry and show you how they look. Okay, so while those clear parts are drying, I'm just going to show you quickly on a couple of these. I'm not going to do all of them because I don't want to tempt fate. But basically I've got some IPA here in a bottle, and I've got the cotton bud is just damp. It's not completely soaking wet, you just want it damp. We could just very gently wipe over the clear part. Okay, go around the edge and make sure you're not pushing too hard. I'm going to put my finger on the back because I don't want to move it because the glue, but I need to get this done so that you can see it as part of this video, because it's not good to leave it on there for ages because it can be quite difficult to get off. You can see there, if you look at that window there, you can see we've got the ink all the way around it. If I just put my finger behind it, just gently rub it, okay, go up and down and side to side. You can get that excess ink off of there, and now you can see the real beauty of having that black painted edge and the black painted, or the black pen on the window. And now when we look behind, we can see clearly the window. So if we want to, we can go around here and we can paint the green on top of here. If you want to, you could remove most of the ink from the clear part before you glue it in. But if you're going to paint around the inside, what's the point? So I'm just going to brush paint some of that green in there just to get rid of that black. I'm not going to worry about any of this back here because you're not going to see anything on the inside. But these here, when you look down in, you might just see them and it won't look very nice. So I'll do the same on these here. So again, cotton bud, just go over it, get the excess ink off so that you can see where to paint. And what we must remember to do is, before we put the fuselage together, is to give these windows a quick polish, because we've had our greasy fingers all over them. So there we go. Right. So that's that. All good. Good idea to wipe that off, but you can leave that till after and just wipe that off with a bit of cloth or a bit of old t-shirt. But you can see now again on that one how neat and tidy it is. Like that. Okay, for those of you who want to see how it's done, there's the inside of that window now all painted, so we got rid of all that black, or most of the black. We're not too worried about all of it because we're not looking straight at it. But here you can see I'm just brushing the paint down there. This is heavily thinned for the airbrush, which means its brush is okay, but generally Tamiya paint, because this is Tamiya XF paint, it is very difficult to brush. It just dries so fast when you go over it, it just tends to lift what you've just put down, it lifts it up. So I'm just going to go along the edge of there like so. Do the same here, making sure we don't touch our control panel. And just literally get rid of all that black, or hide all that black ink. Just like so. I'm tapping the brush rather than stroking it because, as I say, with Tamiya paint, you can put retarders in it and stuff and it brushes okay, but it's not the best paint in the world for brush painting. You're far better off with things like Viejo or good old enamels. I don't know what the new enamels are like for brushing, the new Humber enamels with the changed formula, but there we go. So you can see, just make sure when you look from the outside you can't see any green. If you can, just wipe it off with a cotton bud and start again. So there we are. So when we look inside, you can see that looks a lot better than looking at that. But we're not worried about that. We're not worried about this back here at all. We're not going to see it. So there we go. Okay, you will see a small amount. When you look through the windows, you might think you can see, but when you look in here, you know, you can see some light in there, but when you put the Bombay in, it's completely dark in there. You won't see anything, so really just don't worry about it. Right, I'll be back in a second to show you these clear parts that I've made, and then we'll call that a day. Okay, so this has been a long one, hasn't it? So here we are. We're about, let's get the light a bit better. We're about 3 hours after I did this, and if you remember, it was this one here, bottom left, that was really thick, and then it got thinner and thinner. I went like that, like that, and like that. So this one's the thinnest, that's the next thinnest, that's the next thinnest, and this is the thickest. And as you can see, we have glazing in all those holes, but also, as you can see, the ones that are thinner are kind of concave, and the one that was really thick is kind of flat. So there you go. I've also done here, I've done some scrap plastic. We've got that hole in the bottom of the fuselage where the gum would be. There's no clear part, and I've done this kind of setup here to see if it'll work. And although we can bridge the hole, it doesn't look very nice. It's all a bit all over the place. So we're going to have to cut a disc of something to put in there just to fill up the clear hole. It's a shame Airfix didn't give us the part, but there you go. So you can see that you can actually, if you do have problems with those nose windows, you can actually use crystal clear or white glue or something to replace them. So there we go. So that has been part 4. It's been a very long video. I'm sorry. Some of you I know love it. Some of you hate it. But can't please all the people all the time, eh? So I'll see you all soon for another video. Thank you for watching. Bye for now. And keep looking out for part 5.